And we're rotation today. Hope that everybody has had a great week, and we're happy to have folks jumping in with us. So let's cue that beautiful theme music and let's get going. Well, everyone, I am your executive director and co-host of the rotation, Christopher Cano, and we have our deputy director in Ybor City, Carlos Hermida, and we are joined today by a very special guest, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton from the District of Columbia. Congresswoman, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. I hope you are.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, for those guests of ours, we have a large base in Florida and folks all over the nation that watch our show. They may not be familiar, but you're in your 15th term as Congresswoman over the District of Columbia. That is no small accomplishment or feat to be reelected that many times. So your constituents definitely appreciate your representation in Congress, and I know the American people appreciate your dedicated history to public service. So we appreciate you joining us on the show today.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I was reviewing some of the remarks that you made at the 6th Annual National Cannabis Festival. And, with the fact that D.C. really has a lot of its future held up by Congress, in particular, progressing towards becoming an official state. Also, the issue of adult use and commercialization of marijuana in the District of Columbia is something that also has been held up by Congress. Would you care to expand a little bit more on that for folks who may not be familiar with the unique situation that the District of Columbia is in?
Until the district gets statehood, Congress still has control over bills that pass or don't pass in the District of Columbia. So I have to surmount that in order to get things done. And I came pretty close on cannabis. I got it through the appropriation 2022 bill. And that was some feat because I got it through the House and the Senate. And guess what happened to us? Even though we control the House, Senate, and presidency, it is President Biden who, along with the Republicans, blocked the bill.
No.
So you got to talk to Biden because I'm doing my work over here.
Wow. Yeah, President Biden, a couple weeks ago, he recently pardoned 9 people who had marijuana-related convictions on their record, but there are still tens of thousands of prisoners with federal charges. And, he made us a promise on the campaign trail that he would expunge marijuana records, that this would be something that we would get done. And here we are coming close to the midterm elections, and it just seems like, there's always delay after delay. I mean, you all did your job in the House and you passed the MORE Act and sent it on to the Senate, and we've just seen nothing but delays from Senate leadership in regards to some type of legalization bill. Do you have any hopes that this legislative process around cannabis legalization might actually wrap up before the midterms, or are we kind of pessimistic at this point?
No, I'm still hopeful that Congress will remove the rider that prohibits DC from commercializing adult use marijuana. Look, we control the House, Senate, and the presidency. It's the presidency that stands in my way now, but I'm going to try again before this session is out.
We talk about this issue quite often, and with this issue, we tend to talk a lot about how it's like the Democrats want this and the Republicans don't want this, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, what you're telling me is Biden is your biggest opposition in all your legalization efforts.
Absolutely. Look, the country.
Okay.
First of all, you got
this isn't a partisan issue anymore.
There's something big keeping this from happening. This isn't Democrats versus Republicans anymore.
Well, you've got 18 states that have legalized recreational marijuana, and those states already have or will commercialize it. The fact is that weed is used all over the United States. This president needs to catch up with where people are in this country, where Democrats are, where Republicans are. He is the problem now. In the district, uh, a bill was put in to keep us from commercializing or to keep the possession of marijuana from occurring. But that bill was flawed so that I was able to pass a bill, to keep a bill in that allowed the possession of up to 2 ounces of marijuana. So people are smoking all over the District of Columbia, and for that matter, all over the country. It's the president, the Democratic president, that stands in our way.
I've been in the DMV area for about 3 years now, and I've encountered the way the DC market works, with the gray areas and being able to gift cannabis under I-71 and such. And I can say that there are a lot of young, bright, budding entrepreneurs who are just waiting for their opportunity for these legal opportunities to come about. And I could foresee a lot of revenues coming into the district if folks can actually do their business above water. Everything from getting the Safe Banking Act passed so legitimate businesses can have access to banking and tax breaks to actually getting this rider so the district can flourish with adult use sales. My wife and I took a day trip yesterday to New Jersey, and we checked out their adult use sales for the first time. And ironically enough, their adult use prices are even cheaper than the medical prices we're paying in Florida right now. So it's interesting to see how the different states are putting things together and how the district is shaping up. And I'm really looking forward to the district being able to open up with adult use sales because people want it. And they obviously already have it. It's here. It exists. It's just amazing that in the grand scheme of things, it's still Joe Biden holding things up. And when you go back and you look at his stance, from the time he was a young senator up until now, he's been consistent in not being a proponent of legalization or criminal justice reform, and that breaks my heart in a lot of ways as a loyal Democrat for many years.
Look, he needs to get this president must be some kind of fuddy-duddy. He needs to catch up with the rest of the country and with the residents of the District of Columbia. But let me tell you how it's really hurting us. People are using marijuana.
Yes.
But we are not able to collect tax revenue on recreational marijuana. So there's a real loss to us in not permitting full legalization. That ought to be reason enough for the bill to pass. And as I indicated, I was able to get it through the House and the Senate. And who blocked it? The President of the United States.
But so why though? Why? It would seem to me. So, Congresswoman, I'm going to admit something to you. I am the least political of our normal group. So please excuse me if I say something and I look just completely dumb. But it would seem to me that President Biden, one of the best political moves he could make is to legalize marijuana. You guys were talking about his hand in the war on drugs. This would be such a great move for him, just to make sure that he would get elected. Just politically, that it would erase a lot of big criticisms that he has against him. Why is he standing in your way? Why would he do that?
It's to his advantage as a politician to support legalization of marijuana here and around the country. I really think his position is consistent with where it's always been. He's always been against legalization of marijuana. He's old school on this issue. He's not caught up to where the country is, and certainly not to where the District of Columbia is. He's hurting himself and he's hurting us.
Well said. I was reading an op-ed the other day in The Hill from our executive director at the national level. And the title was, Democrats could blow their midterm chances by not legalizing cannabis, with such narrow margins. And then looking at the polling, I mean, 69% of this country supports the adult use legalization of cannabis. 92% support medical marijuana use. The president definitely is out of touch with this, for sure.
Yeah, so what's to be against here? He's not only out of touch, he's way behind the times. His old school sense of marijuana, which goes back to his days in the Senate, may be the problem. But to be president of the United States, your views have to turn as you learn more and as you see the people whom you represent moving in a certain direction. And this president hasn't budged on marijuana. So that's going to be to his detriment in the midterms, believe me.
Gary, you're our director of public policy. What questions do you have for the Congresswoman in regards to this issue?
First off, I want to apologize for being late. I used to be used to bad traffic. I used to work in D.C. and I lived over in the Clearwater, the Centerville, Manassas area, only 17 miles from the Beltway, and it took me 2.5 hours to drive there. But that was under the guise of Sharon Pratt Kelly. So you and I have been hanging around D.C. for just about the same amount of time, actually, and the things have definitely changed in D.C. I think in the last 30 years or so. And one especially, of course, is the cannabis laws, which I still don't get. I'll be honest with you. I mean, Chris has an absolutely fantastic collection of stickers that he gets that every time that he buys them, he goes is able to buy his product. But how in the world did this policy arrive that you can't buy it or sell it, but you can give it to somebody? It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't and of course, it doesn't help the fact that we have a tax-based problem in DC anyway. So and you can't even tax it this way, can you?
Well, the notion you can't buy it, but you can't give it away just shows you how innovative and crafty residents are.
Yeah.
And wanting to get a hold of cannabis. And that's one of the ways they're doing it. It shows you how far behind the president and the Republicans are. We're still finding ways, in other words, still finding ways to get marijuana to people. Innovative ways.
Well, yesterday on my day trip to New Jersey, when we got there, we waited in line an hour and 15 minutes. I remember getting there around like 5 o'clock and just waiting 30 minutes. I looked behind me and the line was already back down the block. There were people of every demographic, every age, every race, every ethnic group. All of us were like, oh my God, look at the line. But then everybody was willing to be committed and wait that line as long as it took. I mean, I've never seen more people waiting patiently in line than being at Disney World.
What were they waiting for? What were they waiting for?
To get access to the adult use dispensaries in New Jersey. They just started adult use sales in the last 18 days in New Jersey. My wife and I took a day trip. We waited in line. I mean, and I saw people who, from senior citizens to people in their 20s and 30s. One lady was waiting in line. She had her teenage son with her. It was just interesting to see that people will wait for this. People will pay for this. Everyone was paying it, and I'm just thinking of all the tax revenues that they were collecting from there. I'm thinking the average person is probably spending anywhere between $100 to $200, and they're collecting anywhere between $20 to $40 in taxes on each of those transactions. So kudos to them for getting it right. It's a shame that it's the president of the United States, in the grand scheme of things, that has the people of the District of Columbia missing out on so many improvements. I see all the construction happening. I see a lot of development in the DC area. Definitely a lot of gentrification, and so that's a concern too, is affordable housing and how folks are able to be able to afford those things. So seeing the fact that you can get adult use revenues into the district and it can change things, and knowing that there's just one person standing in the way, that's infuriating and quite the struggle. So Congresswoman, hats off to you for continuing to stay in this fight. You've been at this quite a while, and we're almost to the finish line with it. You're right. We got to do our job as advocates and as the public to put the pressure on the president to do the right thing.
Please do. Please do.
And of course,
Uh,
we're all in favor of eventually getting DC statehood, which I know has been kind of on your bucket list for the last 30 years or so. And it was on everybody's mind when I was in DC. I was working as a liaison to Whitman Walker Clinic, and working with the district. And we had cars that the doors would come off, and if you open them up too hard, because you guys weren't getting the appropriate appropriations just to run the district itself. I mean, I think you were out of toilet paper for close to 6 months in all the district offices.
well, we're close to statehood now. I wish we were as close to marijuana legalization.
And will that have a direct effect on legalization?
What?
Well, will DC legalization, will DC statehood uh, help out
Well,
in regards to full legalization?
statehood would take care of it.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
along with other things, I know you're working on the DC appropriations bill. Tell us a little bit what you're working on in regards to those riders that you wanted to remove from the appropriations bill.
Well, we almost got the marijuana rider removed, except for the president, and I'm trying again this session to get it removed. Anytime you get the House and the Senate, you ought to be able to get the Democratic president of the United States. So I'm still trying to remove the rider that prohibits the district from commercializing marijuana. And I'm trying to do it now, even before statehood comes.
Congresswoman, what has been your colleagues' maybe opposition points or concerns? We hear it all the time in Florida. The Republican Party of Florida loves to talk about, well, what about the children and what about their safety? And there's some recent studies that came out just in the Journal of Population Research and Policy Review in the last week that Purdue University produced a study that showed marijuana laws are not associated with clinically relevant changes in birth outcomes. There's always this issue of pregnant women getting access to it or utilizing cannabis in utero. We've seen positive results from 30-year longitudinal studies in Jamaica and such. So and even in Uruguay, they saw that there were no sustained changes in young people's cannabis use following patterns of legalization. As a matter of fact, here in the U.S., we're seeing a drop in middle school and high school students' use in cannabis in legal states. So what's the red herring or the straw man that you see your opponents trying to throw up there?
No, well, my opponents, if you're talking about the District of Columbia, are against everything in the District of Columbia. So I'm not sure why Republicans are opposing marijuana legalization in their own states, since their own residents are well ahead of them on this. They're way behind. So you got to separate out DC, where they oppose anything in DC, from why they're not better on legalization in their own states and in Republican states, since the country is moving right along to full legalization. I indicated 18 states already have legalized recreational marijuana. Now we keep this up, and we'll soon be at most of the states.
Yes, indeed. I believe the only holdouts where there's no marijuana reform is Idaho and Nebraska. All 48 other states have some level of CBD or access to hemp products, or at least some form of low THC cannabis or medical marijuana programs. So, and interesting enough, the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy just produced an analysis that showed that legal states in 2021 collected an estimated 20% more in taxes from retail marijuana sales than from the sale of alcohol products. In California, their cannabis excise taxes brought in more than double the revenue of their alcohol taxes. And in Colorado, it was 7 times that amount of their alcohol taxes.
Well, the taxes may be the strongest case to be made for cannabis legalization. The stuff is being smoked. And in states like mine, you're not getting any benefit in taxes from it. So it's a case of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
You're almost speaking exactly to Florida state politics. Practically everything our governor is doing right now is cutting off our nose to spite our face, from his fight with Disney, to just his fight against cannabis. I mean, we are the third highest amount of sales of cannabis in the country, and yet we only have a medical program. We have no recreational whatsoever. We have over 770,000 registered patients in the market there, and yet we have no reciprocity. So if anybody comes to visit Florida from any other place else in the world, or any place else in the country rather, they can't buy here at all, even though we're the vacation capital of the world. I know that Polis wants everybody to go to Colorado, but to be honest with you, I don't think that Walt Disney World wants to have anybody freezing their tuchus off over in Colorado to go.
You mean you have to be a resident to buy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to be a resident of Florida to buy, and that is how constricted the market is here in Florida, and yet they continue to constrict it. And yet, also because it is a medical market, there is no taxation, because we always believe here in Florida we should not tax medicine, in part because of the huge geriatric population that we have here. But the fact is, we're missing out on so much, and of course, Florida is a bit of a joke in regards to so many policies we have. Us in Texas, we seem to be fighting out for who has the craziest policies lately.
Okay.
I don't think there's any argument there.
Congresswoman, I got a question for you. You've been doing this since '91, right? Have you always been for legalization? Has this always been?
Always.
You always have.
Always.
Wow, that's like then at there was a point where like you were doing like you were for this before like most people were. That's impressive.
Well, I don't remember being against legalization of marijuana. I really don't. Remember.
That's
So
very cool of you. I mean, like
was-
no, because like definitely in the '90s there's quite a few stigmas behind marijuana, and like like the legalization movement really started coming around in like '96. But I mean, like
the use was there well before that.
Oh yeah.
yeah. Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Can we move closer to federal legalization without the president's help? Because we do have separation.
Forget that. That's hard to get 50 states to do anything in this Congress.
So how do we get the president to change his mind?
That's what we need to do. His constituents have long been where you all are. I can only think that the president is trapped in his own generation.
He's trapped in his own private Delaware. But
Well, it's interesting you say that, Gary, because his own state, they're having those talks right now in their legislature. We can see Delaware moving forward too with legalization. I know New Hampshire is in those talks. Vermont. It's interesting to see from Maine all the way down to Virginia. We have adult use states in this country. With just a handful of holdouts in New England are still pushing this. So the president, to the Congresswoman's point, I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe it'll take our former president smoking a J with him. I have no idea, but we need President Biden to wake up and smell not just the cannabis, but the fact that the war on drugs and the over policing that has come with it has damaged so many communities across this country. And we definitely need our president to step up and wake up on it. I mean, the Congresswoman gets it. She's gotten it for over 30 years. It's a shame that we don't have more elected officials that get it, like Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Yeah, I like it. You're straight. You're to the point. Just got the good ideas. That's good.
and you know how to fight the good fight because you've been doing it for so long. And I can see that if this, just in regard to appropriations and in regards to running the district, it has been so difficult with the Congress being in charge of the district as opposed to local government. And yet, so you're kind of like caught in the middle, having to stride both ways.
That's usually the case. But I'm trying to make hay with Democrats controlling the House, Senate, and the presidency. My problem is the presidency.
Well, do you see any kind of bipartisan move in regards to things like the MORE Act and like the SAFE Act and like the other things that are coming through?
I do, if they only follow the country.
We had Nancy Mays on here about a month or so ago, talking about how her current bill, the States Reform Act, is helping to generate some bipartisan support, which might move things forward. And I see actually more of that happening in the House than I do in the Senate, of course.
What is helping? I didn't hear that.
The Congresswoman Nancy Mace's States Reform Act, she said she's getting bipartisan support as of it moving forward. Of course, it hasn't gotten to committee yet, which happens to so many bills. I mean, there's been close to 200 bills that tried to create a legal framework for cannabis since 1971, when the Controlled Substance Act first popped up, and yet I would say approximately 99.5% of them never got past committee up until this last few years, where you actually got the More Act passed twice. But how do we get it to the Senate? That's the next thing. Is there any way?
Well, the Senate is difficult for any bill. So the House it seems to have sense on this issue.
Yeah, one would hope so.
Congresswoman, one of the interesting votes that happened recently in conjunction with the MORE Act was the ability for former cannabis users to maintain some type of security clearance and hold federal jobs. Are you in favor of people being able to hold federal jobs and hold security clearance as medical marijuana patients?
Of course.
Well, then you get it. We love you. You are allied. I mean, it's just astounding. It's refreshing to talk to a member of Congress who gets it and who understands it. Between the 435 some members that exist, I've talked to two in the last couple months that I feel like actually get it, and you're one of those two. So we really appreciate you as an ally, Congresswoman.
Well, it's been very good to be with you, and you can depend on me to keep plugging away for marijuana legalization, first here in the District of Columbia and then across the country.
We were surprised when we heard that there were White House employees that were let go because they did not pass their security clearance in regards to their cannabis use. And that is something that we're dealing with all over the country. Right now we have a shortage of employees because of various reasons. They call it the Great Resignation, I have been told. But the situation is you can have a lot larger pool of good employees, as far as we are concerned, if you would not stop people from getting jobs or maintaining their jobs. If cannabis is what's treating whatever depression they have or whatever situations they have that are keeping them from working, from allowing them to be tax-paying citizens. And what is DC doing in regards to those non-federal employees that can possibly lose their job just for using cannabis on a medical basis?
First of all, DC certainly isn't promoting that at all. I guess these people were. I guess the notion. Remember, this is how. Without legalization, everybody loses. The problem may have been that since it's not legal, there was concern that people would be blackmailed. So if it were legal, we wouldn't have this issue in the federal government.
Yeah, I could understand that. You don't want someone with top secret clearance having to go talk to a drug dealer, national secrets and all that. That makes sense. But with legal adult use, you're right. It wouldn't be an issue. You go in, show your ID.
Nobody can blackmail them for drinking alcohol because it's legal. So if marijuana was legal, it would be the same thing.
Right.
And with all due respect, we do know some congressmen who do imbibe. I'm not going to say who they are. You may actually know.
I bet
well, there's one guy that kind of has a hair kind of like the Frisch's Big Boy, but we're not going to say who that is. Let's just say that with his help, we actually got cannabis legal here in the state of Florida medically. But he's been to DC. Things have been kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, Congresswoman, one of the main issues that we're encountering in legal states as legalization moves forward, and Gary touched on it, we just spoke about it, is worker protections. If we're going to say that this is a legal medicine in 36 states, that it's something that in 18 states you can just walk in and purchase, people should not be precluded from jobs or fired from jobs for it. So it seems like our nation's drug-free workplace policies really do need to catch up with the changes in marijuana reform, and they're just severely lagging behind in so many ways. Do you see Congress as the fix, or does it need to be the bureaucracy under the executive branch that needs to make these fixes?
I think the states need to make the fixes. Congress would mean the House and the Senate, so I'm not relying on that to get bills passed both houses is extremely difficult. It always has been, but it's even more difficult today.
Well, they always say that the state governments are like the meth lab of democracy. They're always mixing something up, and some of it usually blows up. But we always see the federal government, like you say. In some cases, there are some legislators at the federal level that are like the lilies of the field. They do not reap nor do they sow. They can't seem to get anything done as far as moving forward, and we need to have things done. Chris had a good friend who was on the liver transplant list, taken off that list because of the fact that the cannabis use he had was getting him through that time when he needed that liver. And I don't know how it turned out, whether he ever got his liver or not, but that's one of the issues we're trying to deal with federally on a state basis, is to try to keep people from being kicked off of transplant lists for having for using medical cannabis. And some doctors say it's because of survivability, but we have documentation that shows that it does not decrease survivability whatsoever. In fact, it increases it. So what can we do in regards to that?
I don't know. I hadn't considered that.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Gary, because it's not just people's right to life; it's also their basic constitutional rights that are under attack. Our own Commissioner of Agriculture, who is a Democrat, and several plaintiffs who actually are lifelong Democrats, have filed lawsuit against the Biden administration's ATF, because if you go to purchase a firearm, it asks you if you utilize any type of illegal substance. And there even is a caveat for medical marijuana, because it's Schedule I federally, but it's legal at the states, that they're still requiring you to answer that form. So there really is no way to be a legal medical marijuana patient and exercise your Second Amendment rights in this country to purchase and own arms. So that is definitely a major concern that we have right now. Congresswoman, does that seem more like something that the executive branch is going to have to fix, or do you see is that something that you and your colleagues are going to have to address?
To fix what?
The fact that you can't legally be in possession of medical marijuana and firearms in this country.
At the same time, or generally?
Just generally, yeah, and at the same time, like
Don't mix it with gun control, because that's one of the difficult issues in the Congress.
Yeah,
especially in the district.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think a gun owner who is a responsible gun owner who uses cannabis is less likely to fire at will.
Okay, fellas, are we through now? Because you have plumbed my all that.
Well, Congresswoman, we appreciate you taking your time. We're not gonna hold you up. We know you got such a busy day ahead of you. But thank you for joining us.
I do have one thing I wanted to bring up, though. You asked about what we could possibly do to get through to the president, and to be honest with you, we know somebody who he knew from a long time ago. There's a lady here in Florida, 71 years old, who was diagnosed with ALS back in the 1980s when she was the hairdresser for the president's first wife. And she is the oldest living ALS patient in the country right now. She's the only one who's been able to survive. They stopped giving her Social Security years ago. They said that she was beyond her expiration date because they could not figure out how could she still be alive. But she is alive and she is well. And it's because of the fact that she's using this as medicine. And I know he wants to shoot for the moon as far as cancer is concerned. Cannabis could help with that too. But in this one particular aspect, hopefully he can make that kind of a connection to somebody whom he knew from way back when he was first running for senator, that he knew because she did his wife's hair, that this is a medicine that does not need to be taken away by the government. And then when we need to stop getting involved in between the doctors and patients and doctors well, I'll go on from there. But
well,
I just want to bring it to your attention.
Well, thank you again, Congresswoman. We appreciate you. Any party words for our guests and listeners?
Only keep fighting. We're getting somewhere, but keep fighting.
Well, we'll continue to get into good trouble, and we appreciate you. You have a great day.
You too. Good talking to you.
Indeed. Well, everyone listening, that was Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, representing the District of Columbia. She's been representing the district, like we said, now in her 15th term for over 30 years. And
You've
she
been
is
a
always
congresswoman since '91. You're no nonsense.
no nonsense. You can tell it in her demeanor. Like, she don't got time. Like, what y'all want? What y'all want to talk about? This is the deal. She just tell you like it is, and that is refreshing because so many times you talk to a politician and they'll answer a question without actually answering it. Those were just direct points, direct questions, just keeping it real, and that's what we need, and that's what we're happy to bring you.
She's like straight up, like, I don't know, why are you?
Yeah, and maybe we put some extra seeds of things that can grow into policy. I think that's really important for us.
She was just like straight up with Gary's question, like, I don't know, man. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
Well, that is a policy known as educate to legislate. It's what we do when we go to advocate, when we go into the halls of power.
Yeah.
And we hope that you guys out there, as advocates, as people who are concerned about this topic, will continue to do what you can to educate, to legislate, to your own legislators, to your local senator, to your local representative, and to your federal legislator and senator. Because if these are the guys that make the policy, they're making it without your input if you don't give it to them.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
Let's make that point.
Also, I think that
I don't think she liked us. Like, I feel like she didn't like us.
No, I think no. You know what it is, and I picked up on it. She has a lot of pessimism. It feels like in regards to things getting done because her own district is unique in that it's the only place where there's like over 1 million people who don't have any real representation in Congress. They don't have any U.S. senators. They're not recognized for statehood. The District of Columbia really is the epitome of taxation without representation. And to keep fighting for so many years and get shut down so often, you can see that she has this no nonsense attitude about anything because she don't got time to bullshit. And I really
like Biden. It's Biden. Get Biden out of my way.
Yeah,
get
like tell the president
Biden out of my way. Gary's like, what do you think about the reciprocity of the medical marijuana movement? And she's like, it's fucking Biden. I told you it was Biden. Biden needs to get out of my way.
No,
I'm trying to legalize this shit here. They're smoking it already.
They're smoking it right down the street. Like, we're not getting any tax revenues from that.
Somebody tell Biden.
Normally when you pay taxes locally, it goes into a local silo and it goes towards your local fire department, like your local police department, your local Parks and Rec, Public Works. In DC, they pay their taxes. It goes to Congress, and Congress decides on how they appropriate the money back to the district. And if it's not enough, c'est la guerre.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it. And that's why, like I said, when I was working in the district, we had cars, fleet cars, where if you shut the door too hard, it will fall off the damn hinges because they weren't fixing the damn cars because they didn't have a budget for it because the Congress didn't give it to them.
Like a year ago, they had a pedestrian bridge collapse and kill some people. There is definitely crumbling infrastructure. There are roads like sometimes having to take a day trip to DC, depending on what neighborhood you're in, you may need new tires after that because of potholes, because of construction. As I said before, the gentrification is real. And to see historic neighborhoods that you look around and you're like, man, this neighborhood was hit hard by the crack epidemic, and then all of a sudden you see luxury condos going up in those same neighborhoods. It's the same thing that we're seeing in Tampa, that we're seeing all over the country.
That's the thing, though. It's like in all the gentrified neighborhoods here in Tampa, you got a Curaleaf, you got a True Leaf. Big cannabis is part of gentrification.
Two Curaleaves and I believe 2 True Leaves on the same street. If you ride down Florida Avenue all the way from Tampa's borders, off of Bears, and then you ride Florida all the way to downtown, you're going to spot at least 4 or 5 dispensaries just on Florida Avenue these days.
Yeah, but you still don't get the competition of prices. Although they've been compressing prices lately, but they're still too high.
Gary, what's the going rate on an eighth of flower at like a True Leaf or a Curaleaf in Florida right now?
About 60.
So I was in New Jersey just yesterday. For adult use, for an eighth of their top shelf was like $53, $54 and some change.
Well, don't forget, our top shelf is mids, but our top shelf is also going for 70s and 80s. And I'll grant you, I haven't tried black tuna yet. And I probably won't ever be able to afford it. But more power to Bob.
I wonder how much his an eighth of his weed went for, like back when he was smuggling it.
In the 80s, 70s, and 80s, I'm pretty sure it was not
more work he had to put into it back then.
Well, that's the interesting thing about it is I was listening to like the return policies and such, and I went to the botanist. That was the name of the dispensary, because it was either go to Curaleaf or go to the botanist. And I was like, well, we know what Curaleaf offers. So I went to the botanist and checked out. And like I said, the line was so long, but there were people either 60 years old, 50 years old, 40 years old, 30 years old, 20 years old, waiting in line. Like I said, people had their kids with them. It was wild just to see America. And everybody had the same look on their face when they got out of their car in the parking lot. I was like, holy shit, look at this line. I'm going to wait. And everybody waited. Everybody waited. The only two times in life you see people patiently waiting in line is to go vote and to go to Disney World. Well, now we're going to add a third one, and that is to buy adult use weed.
I don't know. I'm not patient.
I wish New Jersey luck, because they've been trying very hard to get ahead of New York City so they could control the traffic on the bridges to which way the residents are going to pick up their weed. Either they're heading out to DC and doing it the crazy way. Heading over to New York and their crazy policies right now, or come on into New Jersey and get to those 12 new licenses they have now.
I went on the weed maps, and it was only the botanist and Curaleaf that had adult use. New Jersey was also interesting because if you had a medical card, you didn't have to wait in line. You can just walk right in, and like medical patients get to skip the line. But the line was an hour and a half wait out the door. I mean, we got there at 5, and we didn't leave till 6:15 with our products in hand. So that was the interesting thing about it too. I was just seeing that, and then they were like, "Yeah, we're cutting it off," because they knew how long the line was. Like they closed at 7. So, but
I don't know if you heard this, but acreage, by the way, is the botanist is the acreage, and that was one where Boehner was a member of the board, which I think he's left that company now. Tried to start another company on his own, and now he's got a suit against him for stealing. Was it private intelligence, whatever it is? Yeah, FBI issue again.
Oh, so the former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, is under investigation for corporate espionage, basically because of his cannabis dealings. Is that what you're saying, Gary?
Basically, yeah, exactly. Right.
Wow, slimy.
The old stealing of corporate intelligence kind of situation.
Interesting. So, who is Acreage's front in Florida? What dispensaries are owned or were owned by them?
They're gone. They were at one point in time, and they had a botanist over in Springdale.
Okay.
And even though they're stationed in Florida, and then they sold.
Okay, interesting.
They sold it off, and we'll see where it goes from now. As far as Florida is concerned, we had 12 applications for that Pigford license. And update us on that. So we had 12 people apply for the black farmers license in Florida. And if you look at the descriptions of the companies that got involved, some of them don't even have a history necessarily of farming at all, and some have a history only of farming.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore it was a situation where the people who were qualified, if they were in the Pigford suit back in the 1990s, many of them in their 70s, 80s, retired. And so basically it was their ancestors that they were picking up on this. This one gentleman we had our event, Mr. Allen, right? David Allen. He was part of Florida Tree Grow.
Jeffrey Allen. It was
Jeffrey Allen. Jeffrey Allen. Yeah, sorry, yeah. He was part of a Florida Tree Growers organization that started back in the 80s, and he had no idea, because he had been trying to get a license now through all the legitimate ways back through 2015 and on, trying to get in. And then he found out when he tried to apply for the Pigford license that he had to have somebody, his organization. He happened to find out that his grandfather was in the Pigford suit. He had no idea, and so he managed it. So we have to get him on to talk about the process, because the process, when I understand, you've got applications that go between 300 and 1,300 pages, and each of these guys has paid in $162,000 just to put the application down. But thanks to Senator Rouson, these guys will be able to apply, anybody who didn't get it, for the next round whenever that happens. Because right now, from what I understand, they have the applications in hand, but they haven't started actually scoring them yet, partly because of the fact that they are getting a independent contractor in to do the scoring. And I don't think that money comes to them until the beginning of the next fiscal year, which is July 1st.
Why is Ron DeSantis' Office of Medical Marijuana Use wasting our tax dollars and bringing an independent contractor? Why can't the OMMU review the applications themselves? Are they so afraid of screwing up? Like, how hard is it to not be racist and review applications?
Well, to be honest with you, I've seen the way that.
Like, how hard is that for the DeSantis administration to not be racist? That we got to bring in an independent contractor? Like, is that fucking difficult?
They have been accused, the Department of Health, in the past of if you have 3 scores for one particular application, have one score be a ringer, so that you throw off the actual score. If 2 of them are high and one all of a sudden is substantially low, that guy can get knocked out if they don't want that person to have that funds.
Wow. So it is hard for them apparently to not be corrupt and racist. Got it.
And look at how the 2015 applications went. It went through a law judge who went ahead and spent 4 years Van Langerham, and said that the entire process was a dumpster fire. That they had done it totally wrong, and they ended up giving licenses to practically everybody who had actually applied, with only a few exceptions, people who totally missed the deadline. But anybody who got scored got it.
Well, except for Flora Grown, because we've had Mr. Redner and his group on the show before, and I just find it ironic that there are still licensees out there. The fact that, like you said, Gary, we have the Pickford license, which needs to be given out, but there's still are we 5 or 10 licenses behind right now in based on patient ratios?
Based on patient ratios, we're about 18 licenses behind.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be like 5 licenses for every 100,000 patients, right?
4.
And so, yeah, and we're trending towards 800,000, and yeah, that's just ludicrous. So yeah, we're 3 licensing, 4 licensing classes behind in Florida, and at a certain point, you got to think: is this by design to prevent competition? Is it by design or due to incompetence of the bureaucracy? You know, it makes you think and wonder. Like, yeah, we can clearly see the bureaucracy is incompetent. And I'm looking at this one guy, Sean, saying that we're fucking idiots. Sean, you're absolutely right. We get high all the time and we talk about shit. And you know what? Maybe the 3 master's degrees between us don't mean anything, but I'll take that. Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll take that as a badge of honor. We're fucking idiots for talking about real shit, like as in the ineptitude of the bureaucracy in this state, or the fact that they're wasting our tax dollars to have to bring in an independent contractor because they can't do shit by not being corrupt or not being racist. Yes, we're fucking idiots for that. Thank you for the badge of honor. We appreciate that. So
it is an unusual battle, and you have to deal with unusual partners, so to speak. And it's because of the fact that this is a bipartisan issue, and yet some people still treat it as if it was highly partisan, but it's not. It really is not.
69% of Americans want this. What was it? 78% of Democrats, 74% of independents, and like 54% of Republicans. So even your conservative Republicans, I mean, hell, Utah has a more advanced and more progressive medical marijuana system than Florida. God bless those Mormons for getting their shit together. Yes, Oklahoma is doing it better than Florida. It is
gonna open a Chillum in Utah.
I mean, for real,
sounds nice, bro.
They got worker protections. They protect you on the organ transplant list. They get it. They just get it.
Mormon.
Okay, now no aspersions to the Mormons, but I don't know if they're going to wear Chillum magic underwear.
We don't know until we try, Gary. We don't know until we try.
Well, look,
yeah,
I'll say this much: you got Arizona and New Mexico now as adult use states. You have Nevada as an adult use state. California, the dominoes are falling out west when it comes to adult use. It's only a matter of time before we see. We already have Colorado. Utah really is the last of the four corners that needs to move forward with adult use. We'll probably see that soon. I mean, big news happening. In Missouri, they've gathered double the amount of signatures they need to get it on the ballot for November. So we'll see probably Maryland and Missouri going for votes for adult use here come November. And that, we'll be up to at least 20, maybe even 21 or 22 states. Ohio is still pending for their adult use initiatives. So, South Dakota is going to try again to codify their rights. That even the people of South Dakota are probably a prime example. They passed a constitutional initiative. Their governor and their legislature and their Supreme Court tries to muck it all up, and they're willing to come back again and tell the politicians, no, this is a policy we want, whether you want it or not. And that's what the American people want in general, is they want legal weed.
Well, let's see if we can possibly give it to them. I don't think we're going to be the next Amsterdam. I don't think we even want to be the next Amsterdam, because Amsterdam has actually got a number of issues that they don't even publicize as much. They are actually trying to shut down the coffee houses right now because they're afraid that they're for tourism. Actually, it's one of the biggest things they have for tourism.
The only reason I want to go to the Netherlands. Why the hell would I want to go to the Netherlands any other place, Like nothing strikes me as, I want to go to Amsterdam for its historic architecture. No, people go to Amsterdam because they have legal whores and legal weed.
Amsterdam's always
Not exactly in the same place, though. I don't think.
I'm pretty sure there's coffee shops in the red light district.
Anti-pothead.
Yeah, the Centro. Yeah.
So they have like weird laws, like you got to bake the weed directly into the cake or some shit like
well,
that.
they don't even have, they don't have growing in their country. Like, it's illegal to grow weed in the Netherlands. Like, they have secret grow houses and shit. You
have to
they have runners that go all day back and forth to the coffee houses, getting this stuff from the legalization market and taking it to the coffee house because of the fact that you have to get it from a illicit source. However, I've been told that is some of the best bud in the world, because these guys in the illicit market, legacy market, whatever you wish to call it in Dutch. I don't speak Dutch, but you can get some amazing products.
Well, Strain Hunters was one of my favorite shows, back in like the mid 2010s, and I remember watching Arjan and them, just travel the world looking for exotic land races they could bring back to Amsterdam to the coffee shops and such. And I always found that quite interesting. And that's where, we talked about Bud's Place on the last show of creating the space where, people can come in and consume cannabis in a friendly environment. I remember in 2014 going to Colorado to the Lazy Lion and paying a membership fee. They had a dab bar, they had a flower room where you can get, that you can reimburse them for the flower that they gave you. And it was an interesting type of setup. Eventually they got shut down, and so being able to have places that can operate above water, that can be legal, where people can consume it, I think makes sense. I mean, if we had a cannabis consumption lounge in Ybor, I'm pretty sure that would probably be one of the most regularly packed places on a Friday, Saturday night. Hell, on a Tuesday night, if anything. Right, Carlos?
Well,
I agree.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to invest in a Bud's Place, I'll be there to greet everybody at the front door. That's what
I could see it. I mean, I think there's a couple of open club spaces there right on 7th. I mean, could you imagine a consumption lounge next door to Prana?
I mean, yeah. I think Ybor, I think it would be best like off strip. I think a consumption lounge needs a parking lot. I think it would be better to attract people there.
What if we had a consumption patio behind Chillum? That would be awesome, right?
It'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. I have a real backyard vibe to it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Now, speaking of coming attractions, just so you know, our next guest coming up, we again pre-taping, but this Wednesday we are going to have former governor, current Congressman Charlie Crist. How's
that going to work? We're going to replay this video on Sunday.
Yeah, and then I guess
next Sunday we do Charlie Crist,
or we
Yeah.
or we could one day, or however you wish to do it. We're open to suggestions because we had a little computer glitch
Yeah.
Last
somewhat.
week.
So now because of the computer error, we're ahead a week.
More or less, we've caught up. Yeah, we had Bud's
All right.
place, and then yeah, we're ahead a week or two. So I think it's great. Gary, I just want to say a big thank you to you for locking in these amazing guests. Whether it's
Yeah.
been Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton or Congresswoman Nancy Mace, you amazing guys from Bud's place. Dan Herrera is going to reschedule the show with us. You got Malcolm McKinnon to come on the show, who connected us with Tommy Chong. It's been an amazing last 3 months of the rotation. And we've had more celebrities and guests than ever before. And that is a big part because of Gary Stein. And I think all of our listeners need to know that, we try to not be mundane and keep the show fresh. And so Gary's been a big part of that. And, if your organization wants to have a bigger role in showcasing your products or your brand, we're open to sponsorship here on the rotation, and also as business members with our chapter of Suncoast Normal. But if you're just a regular listener, a regular Joe Schmo, everyday type of guy or gal, you can become a member of Suncoast Normal, be a part of this movement for $25 a year. Get your lapel pin, get your membership card, get your discount there at Chillum. There's a lot to be said about being a member here. It comes with a lot of pride. We've done a lot to build this brand, and folks recognize Normal as the official and really power player in reforming marijuana laws throughout this state, locally, and throughout the country. So,
and if you want to make any ask Congressman Christ any questions, we will be taping at 11 o'clock on the 11th. That's Wednesday, and come up with some good questions. Don't make them too nasty. I think would be the best way to handle it, because a lot of folks like to get. He's a consummate politician. I can guarantee he's not going to get shaken. I might just get shaken. But the fact is, this is a guy that we have a chance, just like we do with Nikki Fried, of putting her in the place of where DeSantis is now, where on a state level, DeSantis is a problem where Biden is the problem on a federal level. So how your vote does make a difference, and how much people know about those candidates makes a difference on how they vote as well. So you can be a part of that situation, and you can be part of Normal too, just by becoming a member, which is really, really inexpensive, and it has a lot of benefits to it, especially when it comes to when we go to Tallahassee and we smoke them out. And by that, I mean, find out who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. That's what I meant by that.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely going to smoke the vote this go around, and we'll have voter guides going out to our members and such, so they know how to navigate the primaries and the general elections. With qualifying coming up here, over the next 30 days. So we'll see folks, showing up for these federal races and for local races all the way around. So all in all, we look forward to bringing you a long list of folks who you can support that will be allies to the legalization movement across both sides of the aisle. But the most important thing you can do is get involved in your party primaries, because the people that we're voting for in the general elections in November need to be more like the Congresswoman we had on today, straight to the point and allies and get it. And if they don't, then they're not the right person. And so that's why I'm looking forward to us interviewing Congressman Chris. I'm glad we've already had Commissioner Fried on, and I look forward to seeing which of these will be the best candidate to unseat Governor Ron DeSantis, because he is not an ally to patients in any way, shape, or form, just based off of his own thoughts on moving forward with adult use and the ineptitude and corruption of his Office of Medical Marijuana Use in rolling out our medical marijuana system over the past 4 years.
So what do you think is the chance of my getting Ron DeSantis on the show?
Gary, look, Carlos, Gary, you all were there when we met with his staff a couple, 2-3 years back in lobby days.
He did
come
not
on.
show up.
He didn't show up. His staff barely took notes. They thumbed their noses at us the whole time in the air. Like, why are we, having to waste time with all these potheads? I just, hey, look, make the outreach. If he's willing to come on the show, I'll give him a fair shake. I'm not gonna, call him an ass face to his face. But
I can tell you that in the cafeteria they'll hear you. I can guarantee you that in the cafeteria they will hear him yell, "No." Kind of like what happened when we tried to get those amendments in this last year.
Oh man, that was so disheartening to try and get those amendments in and to hear just people shouting no, and I'm just like, fuck you guys, but they'll kick you out of the gallery for that. It kind of, it's crazy. So
Yeah, you don't want to get kicked out of the gallery.
man. Well, guys, it has been fun commiserating with y'all. Gary, thank you again for helping line up the Congresswoman on the show. The major issues of DC statehood and legalization seem to be intertwined. President, really, she presented the case very clearly. It's either President Biden gets out the way and eliminates the rider that prevents adult use legalization in DC, or DC gets recognized as a state, in which case the rider no longer matters and they can pass their own laws as an independent state. So it is interesting to see how those issues intersect, and we'll see how it all shakes out over the coming years.
I mean, I want to see Puerto Rico become a state eventually, if only because they can get media noches easier in this country. Instead of having to go all the way to Orlando.
I think it'd be kind of cool to get infused media noches. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Put that in your egg bread and smoke it.
and our wishes again go out to Ukraine. For those of you folks you don't know, I still got relatives out that way. My grandfather was from Kiev, and so Sala Ukraine. Okay, that's Ukraine forever.
Is that it?
Glory to Ukraine. Actually.
Bye, everybody.